What's up, guys? It's M here. So, I want to talk to you guys about investing, but primarily investing in the S&P 500. Why? See, the S&P 500 is something easy that you can understand because it's investing in the best 500 companies within the United States. We know plenty of companies that we love to go to on a regular basis and purchase their goods and services. Walmart, Costco, Honda, Netflix. Some of us would like to watch Fox, which owned by Disney, Comcast. You name the companies that you probably use their services on a regular basis, AT&T, T-Mobile, those companies that you have an understanding about, right? And so you'd be more comfortable purchasing that because you might have one of those buy from that store or use that services like the internet. Now, that's why that should be like everyone's first investment, getting into the S&P 500, because that will be the catalyst for you to understanding the company's financials, like events that you invest in the S&P 500. And later on in life, you want to learn a little bit more about investing in individual stocks, right? Which is going to be a whole nother discussion. But the S&P 500 can be that gateway into that type of investment style. However, going to S&P 500 will be an easy start, and then you can invest a little bit of money, right? Now, what do I mean by that? Nowadays, we can invest with fractional shares, and you can choose something like an ETF to start with, because we have things like QQQ that follows the best tech companies that you can invest in, and then they have smaller accounts for investing in the S&P 500. Hold on, let me put this up. There are some good ones that you can get involved in, like SPY, which is worth right now like $700 for that. But we have other ones that'd be great picks. We have the SPX XPXS, which is also something that follows the S&P 500. You got the SPXL and a whole other bunch of other ones that you can invest in that can bring you some type of profit. But you just got to do your homework to find out the best ones that you could get involved with, because they have some for $60. Because right now, while looking at my hold on. Looking at mine, I own FDVV, which is Fidelity's High Dividend ETF, which follows the S&P 500. And right now that's at $62. So imagine if you make a good amount of money from work, you got extra $200-300 to spare, you can invest in that. Because if you invest in SPY, again, it's going to be around $700. So you have options. You can go ahead and invest in certain things without being too much involved in the research aspect yet, right? But however, if you take the opportunity, you can get into that sooner or later. Now, what are some other things you can understand? So when you invest in the S&P 500, right, you can go do some homework. This could be your basic investigation for finding out what are the best 500 companies. Who are they? And by you looking up the best S&P 500 companies, you can go ahead and do your homework and understand why did the people who choose these companies pick these certain companies. And most likely is because they bring in cash flow. They have a strong balance sheet. They don't have that much expenses, and they have consistency throughout the industry, right? So these are names that make it their obligation to make the best choices for their investors and make sure that they provide value to our society. Because you got Johnson Johnson who's part of it, right? And they make sure that they produce the supplies that we need for babies, soaps, and all these things that we use on a regular basis. So this is why you should be getting involved in the S&P 500. And another reason why you should get invested in the S&P 500, why? Because it's easy to start looking into different financials in your own financials. how much do you really need to invest in your point in life? Because some of us don't have a lot of money. So by finding the right ETFs, asking yourself, how much money do I really need? And asking about yourself, what options do I have? Because again, you can buy fractional shares, you can buy individual shares, and that will give you the catalyst to know, okay, I don't got that much cash, but let me use the little that I have by using fractional shares. But if I do have cash, I can buy individual shares, and then I can make my investment come real. I can have my own retirement account and I'll be fully responsible for it. Why? Because I'm taking that initial step to invest in for myself. I don't need to go through a company. I don't need to do it through work. And if I do through work, I can have this on the back end so I could my investigation. I can learn. And this is the great thing about being part of the S&P 500 and being a part of the ETFs that follow the S&P 500, because it gives you that foundation to know where you can start at. And then you can learn about dividends, cash flow, revenue, and expenses, and build on your information from there. Because you can do your homework in the individual companies, but have that initial investment within the S&P 500, giving you that stability that you need. While when you learn about individual shares, you can build on your knowledge without feeling, oh, I'm going to miss that opportunity. No, because the S&P 500 already has all those companies involved. So you can give yourself that breathing room. You can give yourself that opportunity to take a breath, take your time, and learn as you go throughout the process. I hope that helps you guys out. I hope to see you guys in the next one. Peace.